You didn't take any action. You didn't fire anybody. You haven't compensated a single victim. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. There's families of victims here today. Have you apologized to the victims? Would you like to do so now?
Well,
they're here. You're on national television. Would you like now to apologize to the victims who have been harmed by your product? Show them the pictures. Would you like to apologize for what you've done to these good people?
That was brilliantly done. Just a few moments ago in the United States Senate, Josh Hawley, the senator from Missouri, reduced Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook, to a quivering, stammering pile of jello. And it was an amazing thing to see. I've been watching congressional hearings for decades now. And I got to tell you, I've never seen what you're about to see right now. You're going to see the whole thing here. And this is, honestly, it's historic. Take a watch.
Let me start with you. Did I hear you say in your opening statement that there's no link between mental health and social media use?
Senator, what I said is I think it's important to look at the science. I know people widely talk about this as if that is something that's already been proven. And I think that the bulk of the scientific evidence does not support that.
Well, really, let me just remind you of some of the science from your own company. Instagram studied the effect of your platform on teenagers. Let me just read you some quotes from the Wall Street Journal's report on this. Company researchers found that Instagram is harmful for a sizable percentage of teenagers, most notably teenage girls. Here's a quote from your own study. Quote, "We make body image issues worse for 1 in 3 teen girls." Here's another quote. "Teens blamed Instagram," this is your study, "for increases in the rate of anxiety and depression. This reaction was unprompted and consistent across all groups." That's your study.
Senator, we try to understand the feedback and how people feel about the services. We can.
Yeah, and here comes the stammering and the stuttering. The brilliance of that move right there, because, you know, the science, they're going to start debating the science. And what does Josh Hawley do? What does he pull out of his back pocket? Mark Zuckerberg's study, not something from some college or university. No, their own research that Instagram did on themselves. And now Zuckerberg has to answer for it. And, well, he can't. And that's what's so beautiful. But I got to tell you, Hawley's just getting started. The buildup to the climax of this interrogation, this testimony, is amazing to watch, and how dramatic it is. Let's get back to it.
Wait a minute. Your own study says that you make life worse for 1 in 3 teenage girls. You increase anxiety and depression. That's what it says. And you're here testifying to us in public that there's no link. You've been doing this for years. For years, you've been coming in public and testifying under oath that there's absolutely no link. Your product is wonderful. The science is nascent, full speed ahead, while internally, you know full well your product is a disaster for teenagers.
Senator,
and yet you keep right on doing what you're doing. Right?
That's not true. That's not true.
Let me show you some other facts I know that you're familiar with. Wait a minute. That's not a question. That's not a question. Those are facts, Mr. Zuckerberg. That's not a question.
Those aren't facts.
Let me show you some more facts. Here's some information from a whistleblower who came before the Senate, testified under oath in public. He worked for you. It's a senior executive. Here's what he showed he found when he studied your products. So, for example, this is girls between the ages of 13 and 15 years old. 37% of them reported that they had been exposed to nudity on the platform unwanted in the last 7 days. 24% said that they had experienced unwanted sexual advances they'd been propositioned in the last 7 days. 17% said they had encountered self-harm content pushed at them in the last 7 days. Now, I know you're familiar with these stats because he sent you an email where he lined it all out. I mean, we've got a copy of it right here. My question is, who did you fire for this? Who got fired because of that?
Senator, we study all of this because it's important and we want to improve our services.
Well, you just told me a second ago you studied it, that there was no linkage. Who did you fire?
I said you mischaracterized.
37% of teenage girls between 13 and 15 were exposed to unwanted nudity in a week on Instagram. You knew about it. Who did you fire?
Senator, this is why we're building all.
Who did you fire?
Tools. Senator, I don't think that's.
Who did you fire?
I'm not going to answer that.
Because you didn't fire anybody, right? You didn't take any significant action.
It's appropriate to talk about like
It's not
individual HR
appropriate.
decisions.
Do you know who's sitting behind you? You've got families from across the nation whose children are either severely harmed or gone, and you don't think it's appropriate to talk about steps that you took? The fact that you didn't fire a single person? Let me ask you this. Have you compensated any of the victims?
Sorry?
Have you compensated any of the victims? These girls, have you compensated them?
I don't believe so.
Why not? Don't you think they deserve some compensation for what your platform has done? Help with counseling services, help with dealing with the issues that your service has caused?
Our job is to make sure that we build tools to help keep people safe.
Are you
across
going
our
to
platform.
compensate them?
Senator, our job and what we take seriously is making sure that we build industry-leading tools to find harmful
To make
content,
money.
take it off the services,
To make money.
and to build tools that empower parents.
So you
that
didn't
help more
take any
people.
action. You didn't
That's
take
not
any
true,
action. You
Senator.
didn't fire anybody. You haven't
That's not true.
compensated a
That's
single
not-
victim.
that's
Let
not
me
what I
ask you
said.
this. Let me ask you this. There's families of victims here today. Have you apologized to the victims? Would you like to do so now?
Well,
They're here. You're on national television. Would you like now to apologize to the victims who have been harmed by your product? Show them the pictures. Would you like to apologize for what you've done to these good people?
Look at this scene. Look at this moment where one of the most powerful people in the world was boxed so into a corner of shame and incompetence that he had no choice but to rise to his feet, turn around, and look at the parents, address these parents and family members who were now standing up, the ones in black, wearing the ribbons, the white ribbons, on behalf of their children who were abducted, who were molested, in some cases who were murdered. So much here to finish this up with, other than let's start with applause for the people of Missouri for sending Josh Hawley to the Senate. Hey, have you noticed, the real smart set, the intellectuals, a lot of the never Trumpers in Washington, D.C., there's a couple of members of Congress and people in the Senate who they're just not our kind of people, right? You know what I'm talking about. You see these intellectual nimrods from the right, even conservatives, they call themselves Republicans, and they're above all of the tawdriness that people like Josh Hawley or Ted Cruz bring to the table. Oh, they're just not our kind of Republicans. Good, because the people, the senators, that they all poo-poo and degrade and mock and make fun of, have you ever noticed that they're the ones who actually do something in these hearings? That actually bring issues up that you care about and actually hold these people's feet to the fire like you just saw? That was brilliantly done. On that final point about whether Mark Zuckerberg will actually create a victims fund with his own money, and of course he won't, and you saw that he won't. It's funny, though, in the last election cycle in 2020, he sure used a lot of his money to make sure that mail-in ballots were deposited in drop boxes and collected in certain neighborhoods, in certain districts, in certain counties, in certain states that really made a difference in the final vote count. There he was fine. He didn't hesitate to use money for that kind of stuff. They called him Zuck Bucks. Remember? And finally, we can tell that nobody really got fired over there at Facebook and Instagram for putting your daughter into harm's way, for psychologically damaging an entire generation of young women, even though they knew that it was happening. No, nobody got fired. But I'll tell you, somebody who will get fired at Facebook today, the person responsible for preparing Mark Zuckerberg for today's hearing. One last thing. If you're watching this on Facebook, do me a favor, share the hell out of this, like it, add comments to it, build it up so it automatically gets promoted, because I really want Facebook to have to deal with this. And if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and share the link on your Facebook. Let's just flood the zone. Thanks for playing, Mark.